that I know of.
No, no.
But then someplace in the line there, they said, look, in the state of Wisconsin, now you're going to have to grade your cheese. We're going to tell you what to call it, and whether it's a B or A and C. And that's when Kraft moved to Illinois and said, you're not going to grade our cheese. In fact, they made more cheese in Illinois there in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, but they
put all
I
those
think they
plants
had
in.
10 plants in Illinois at one time. I think they got one if they got that.
Oh, and you graded cheese. Now, when you first started grading, you graded for what company?
For the Swiss Colony. I worked for Borden's before I went into service. I was with Borden's and I came back and started, and then I went to Swiss Colony. But I didn't grade it. I was just helped by Alfred Locker and Ernie Locker.
I knew Ernie. Ernie graded a lot of cheese for us.
Yeah, and I worked with them, but I didn't, at that time I wasn't a grader yet.
All right, now, can you maybe tell us, like when you first started grading the cheese, right after you came out of the service there, was there a lot of changes between there and the 70s?
There was many changes.
In the grades I'm talking about. I mean, was the
well,
quality about the same, or did it?
Well, the quality was not too much different in the quality. It probably is larger the factory, sometimes they're more uniform, the cheese. You had a lot of little ones versus one big one. The big ones, were a lot bigger, that.
Oh, yeah.
And the little factories in that. But the quality it seemed to be, but it was a different type of cheese when they went from the wheels to the block. Then they made, it was quite a change there to get used to making block. They had more trouble with the wrappers and that until they got transformed over to it. They was changing the block. They made different size. They had a turtle block, a small one, and then they had the regular 100
What
pound
size?
block.
The size of what was the turtle block?
About 80 to 90 pound. Probably a little closer to 80 pounds. And then the other block, the longer block, was about 100 pounds, or 95 to 100. And then you had the double block was around 180 to 200, almost the same as a wheel, only square. See.
But that was more or less the most popular, the 180 one, right? Where you didn't have that extra
cut in the middle. Cut them, and you had to save the less rind on it, right?
Well, there was an old argument, and we won't settle it today, and hopefully it'll probably never ever be settled. But when the wheels really came, or the rindless came in, these old timers said there's no way that cheese is good as the wheel. What would your opinion be on that?
Well, the wheel, there's always a flavor by the copper. There's a copper oxide or something with that copper kettle. And these, out here at Appendale, they're still using the copper kettle, making some Greer.
Yeah.
And there's the copper, something in that copper gives it a different flavor.
You think that that's really true?
Yeah. Well, everybody says it isn't, and some says it is, but I think must be some logic to it.
I remember in Kraft back in 48, 49, when they were experimenting, they put copper salts into the milk to maybe if it was this copper. But I was in Switzerland here not too long ago.
And they're famous, huh?
And no, they had a copper, like not really a double O, but a vertical tank that held up for 5 or 6 wheels. We won't go into that today, but it's
I'm not a scientist, so I don't know either.
Well,
but I did. I know the wheels that we always had made out of copper kettles, like the town hall or Grossen and that, and they could keep 2 kettles.
But there were a lot of block made out of kettles also.
Right. Most of the block would be kettles for years. Kettles, yeah. Now it's different. And that's a different process altogether.
Well, that's an argument we won't settle today, or I guess ever.
No,
all right, then did you grade brick and
Munster and cheddar and mostly Swiss, but I did a lot of brick and Munster and cheddar too.
And they came from what areas? Right around here then?
Well, yeah, the brick like from Depler's and Gilmore at there and different factories around here. We had a lot of factories in brick, and then I even had, as far as that time, we had a Swiss factory. We had 5 from Spice Lake areas and Campion and in that area up there one time, but they don't make that up there now.
Did you ever kind of see a little difference in the grading that maybe later on an open cheese wasn't quite as was more popular if they had open, or were most of the grades stay the same from the time you started?
Well,
due to the slicing and packaging.
Slicing, they liked the cheese you know, open, but not too open, you know, so it would make it, so if you draw the vacuum on it, it would just all be in a ball, you know, they don't want that much, but they still wanted the open cheese.
Open cheese.
And the big thing in a piece of cheese, you know, in your supermarkets like A&P, and we used to sell a lot of A&P and them, they liked a big hunk of cheese with a lot of holes in it because it didn't weigh much. You got a big hunk of cheese like that, boy, I got a big piece of cheese. Maybe it weighed only 3 pounds. With another hunk like that would weigh 5 pounds if it was solid. So they were getting a lot, and they could slice all sandwiches and then put it on there. It was cheese, but you didn't. Maybe it was 3 ounces versus 8 ounces. You know,
yeah, then the restaurants came along to where they needed that cheese to keep together. You know, we get too much fat. And then
well, I graded cheese for kosher for 25 years.
Did you?
We did kosher almost 30 years, but we did.
And kosher means that
the rabbi puts the rennet in. Nobody else can put the rennet in. And then there's different kinds of kosher too. There's a kosher that they even supervise the. They get it. Farmers get an extra $1 on it. They even supervise the milking. That's the different, more orthodox.
Yeah, the OU maybe.
Yeah. Well, the OU and then they've got all kinds of different grades too. They used to. They have different ways. You know, they had a different name for it. Off the tip of my tongue, I can't think of it right now. And while Passover is another thing, they had special cheese made just for Passover and everything. So.
Now, was that all their cheeses, Brick and Limburg, or Brick and
we
Munster
just did
cheddar,
the Swiss,
or just the Swiss?
We did just the Swiss, and well, we did Munster and that, but that was made up at up north. They had Munster made.
So the rabbi, he was up there sometimes.
But they couldn't start milking until the rabbi got there on the Orthodox. Not all of them. There's some kosher more lenient than different things.
Oh, there's a lot of kosher foods yet in the stores. I got one question here.
That was the World Cheese, Leo Thurman, and Miller's koshers as I did grade for many years, about 20, good 25 years.
All right. I have one more question here. When you had a cheese that was an A on the top side and dead on the other one, what shall we say? We're going from the top grade, and then the other half of the cheese was the bottom grade. How did you ever
come up with a grade on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, a lot of people it depends, you know. When you're grading, sometimes for a company, you know what you can use. And that's another thing with your grader. You got to know, well, now I graded these, and these are pretty overset. We'll lose these for low cut, like I told you.
Sure.
These here we could slice. They'll make the slicing. And you have to sort your cheese. And sometimes we
still satisfied the cheese.
I try to keep the cheesemaker on even. A lot of times sometimes we'd grade that down to a C, and sometimes a B, depending how deep the one-sidedness was. If it was penny on the other side, and not, you know, or something else, then we had to go. But you had a lot of other things you had to look for too, is workmanship and grind and smell.
That was the thing. I don't think you could make a one-sided cheese, but you sure as heck every so often they turn up. You know,
we had to watch where they put the straddle in the wheels. They used to put it in the middle. I had a guy. You never plugged the wheel and Swiss in the middle. You know that, and they put them in the hoop too.
On the side. Maybe explain what the scrabble is. That's
well, that's the fines we used to call out of the bottom of the kettle.
After you take the
big
cheese out,
that was 5 or 6 pounds to get that 5 or 6 pounds in there. Of course, I was showing him prices that some of it was only 16 cents Swiss was in 1938.
Is that right? Well, you know.
At 1 month, there was some months it was up to 20.
But you wonder why, I've never been able to figure it out myself, why that scrabble, which is cheese, curds just like the other, but maybe just from being the fines or what you've missed, makes that little nest, as they call it.
Probably the temperature change too, the smaller mass.
You know, but I know we used to push it on the right.
Same as a baby Swiss. They had one time, they was trying to make a 20 ounce. And there's not enough mass there to form the eyes, and if you get the salt on there, you get too much salt, and that prohibits that too.
Well, going back to the brick now, you know, years ago they bought all the brick for the summer, and they had a lot of cheese left over for the fall. Was it kind of hard to grade? Did they have to dry it up some, or make a little firmer cheese for the summer?
Yeah.
Or did they move it as?
Well, the brick and then the moistures, you know, a lot of them, you go to 44, but nobody wanted a 44 moisture, you know. And Munster at 46, you always stayed in the 42 range for the brick, and the good brick was 42 and about 51 to 52 fat. It kept it, you didn't want nowadays. Then, you got to talk about the cattle. The days that we had to watch for low-fat cheese, because in them days, Holstein, some of them hardly tested 3 or 3.5. Now you got these Holsteins that tested 4 and 4.5.
Yeah, I think they went the wrong way on that because nobody wants
Yeah,
the fat.
remember you got the fat too low. And
I often wondered why they never changed that 20 years ago, because it was anyone could see it coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was quite a thing there. You know, then you had like the cheddar was, you know, you didn't have 50% fat. And,
Yeah.
The Swiss, they weren't really that fussy, were
Well,
they?
they always, you know, separate because you got too much fat in the cheese. You could tell the eyes would get dull, and then it'd get glassy. What you don't mention is glass. We call it slits.
Oh, is that what they call it?
The government and the graders, they say, well, it's a little glass. No, it's not glass. People would think there's glass in it or something.
Oh, yeah. I never give it a thought. Well,
Yeah.
I always was called glass as far as
Because I was
know.
corrected on that a few times.
Well, you didn't really have the body, the
Right.
texture when
Right.
you had too much fat in it. They always say full cream cheese, but and it's all right to eat if you get the holes to the eyes to develop. But
Right.
if you get it too soft a body from the fat globules, it's going to be, you're not going to get the same cheese. Well, back to the brick then. Did you ever have a lot of problems with brick blowing up, or?
Oh yeah, they did have brick would blow up, and even Munster sometimes they blow up. A lot of it was penicillin. And
Yeah, that was a new thing.
And that was a new thing. Like even my dad. I remember my dad was making Swiss cheese. He had one time when they started it, when his one farmer was a very good farmer, and he always had to use him for the mother starter. You know.
Oh, God.
So one morning he started to run over set cheese. He wondered what the heck was going on. He walked the cellars. He couldn't think. Maybe he had a wine or two, I don't know. But he walked the cellars, you know, what's going on? So all of a sudden in the intake room, one guy hollered over there, and he says, how's that molasses coming in the silo? And my dad said, molasses in the silo? Why didn't you tell me you was putting molasses in the silo? Do that, you know.
Oh, God, they came with all that different feeds, you know, or it is there. It really tested the cheesemaker.
Well, and then, you know, peroxide, too, was another one. Years ago, they was playing around with, you know.
I made that with, but then we preheated it and put peroxide.
They had some that would turn color, too.
Is that right? Yeah, we experimented with that in the 50s. I had pretty good cheese.
Brass fittings or brass valves or something.
One more thing on the grater. Did you notice the difference the old timers used to say down at Bumgardner's and the WEKZ? Now it's summertime. The cows are out on grass and we got grass brick. Grass brick.
Well, the saying, yeah, but that saying you can't say they dry feed so much, you know. And years ago, they turned in. Well, we used to have trouble selling cheese to Philadelphia. They wanted white brick. I had a load of brick. That's colored brick. That's got the straw colored, you know, about a little lighter than this, you know. And this one guy, he was for high-grade foods. He come and told me, we don't want no coloring in ISSA. That's when the cows go off in the grass.
Well, sure, that's in the grass.
It was a natural thing at that time, but now they dry feed. You don't see that much. There's a touch in it.
Yeah, the carotene in the grass and I don't know, somebody said dandelions.
Now, brick, I got a piece of brick to dump the other day, and he's a little coloring in it, but that's not the true coloring. It's just the regular. It's from the.
I got to get a little plug in here. That's why that Applejack is so white. I don't have no color.
I remember we had some of your Applejack. It was good
well,
cheese.
the main thing is it's mild. See, and
right.
the main thing with cheese is
that's why Port Salute was
yeah.
real mild and very pleasing type of cheese.
Did you grade any Port Salute? That came from down Norm McConnell there. We had,
we used to have Buena Vista factory there. I graded some of that and that because I know some of them used to raise heck because they would get about 50% moisture, and then jeepers, that was a heck of a yield. To some of the cheesemakers would say, hey.
All right. Then
But that's a good cheese, though. A lot of people like it.
I don't see it around anymore.
Well,
in this country.
Buena Vista didn't make it anymore. And they're making it Byron, Illinois, and then that doesn't make it anymore. It's a lot of those cheeses, they just, well, I suppose there wasn't enough demand and they had to sell it fast. You couldn't keep it, freeze it or something.
Any more interesting stories you can think about grading?
Oh, yeah, there's a few that I didn't off my mind right now on it, but then there's been grading.
Well, let's just stop and drink a little water. Maybe one will come to us,
Okay.
shall we?
Yeah. But they have Reed County Fair and the Lafayette County Fair. And that.
Okay, now that you mentioned all that. And then, like you said, to grade that cheese, what are some of the rules that you have to abide by? And then you can get into that. See, okay, then we'll just as soon as he's ready, we'll start with that. Then, and then, do you have anything else while we're talking about?
Well, I can. We got the line situation, I guess, pretty well straightened out,
And yes, he's got it going now here.
I hope he hasn't got it going.
Doc, we aren't on, are we?
Yes, you are.
Oh, well, go ahead.
We better go ahead.
All right, here, I'm gonna start you in here again. Well, let's continue here, Bob. They wanted to make sure we let them know that this is just plain distilled water with some lemon in it, because now you did a lot of contest grading, right? And can you tell us a few things about that?
Well, it's at the Green County Fair and Lafayette County Fair, we set different regulations and rules, but then, and they figured the contest a little different. Now in the United States grading at Green Bay, they would grade, I think it was 8th graders, and then they would pair us off. In Munster, some of them had more expertise in processed cheese and Munster cheese and different, and they would pair you off. And that way we would be out. And then they would have the final grading. They would take one of, you could pick your area. You would say if you was good at Swiss cheese grading, and then they'd pick the overall best cheesemaking grader or cheesemaker that way. And they would pick it that way. But some of the rules you had, you couldn't, there was no smoking allowed in any part of the grading, but then if you got a real bad piece of cheese in your mouth and you wanted to clean it out, well, I used to think I usually eat an apple or something to clean your mouth, but that was not, they wouldn't allow you to do that, so they said distilled water or 7-Up. And of course 7-Up don't have any caffeine or anything in it, then it'd clean your taste and then you'd go for that, that way. But if you had you didn't have nothing, no shaving lotion or high perfume, like if you use a lot of deodorant or something like that, they didn't want that, and there's never no smoking. Another thing what they did, we would be grading here today,
I'm done.
Keep going.
I guess
No,
we
just
didn't know
finish
it was
up
on.
with him.
And anyway, what they would do, I lost my track here, I concentrate. You would set up your grading, then you'd have to go do different things like you'd warm the cheese up. But to get the flavor of the cheese, you got to get it up about 65 degrees. So they take this cheese and set it all up and open it up and set it here. Not exactly take it out of the wrapper, but set it here, ready to grade. So the temperature, the cheese would come from 38 degrees in the cooler, so it'd get up close to 50 to 60 degrees, so you get a better flavor. See, you'd get any sourness or pick it out. Of course,
But usually, did you always taste all of yours, or just more or less kind of run it past the nose?
you run past the nose, but up there we'd taste it and you could spit it out, or it looked like I ate most of mine, but they even told you how, on your taste buds, usually the sweetness is on your tip of your tongue, and you're bitter and sour on either side, and then you'd warm it up in your mouth, and you'd notice this, you'd think, oh, that's pretty good, and then you'd swallow it, and you get an aftertaste, and then you get the aftertass on the back.
After I had about 3 tastes, I was done. It didn't make that big a difference.
Well,
I mean, that's so
different.
easy.
Different people have different flavor, different tastes to them. But then you have to make different kinds of liquids that help. Like 7-Up was always better for me than water. I thought the 7-Up would kind of clean the greasy taste. It would cover up your taste buds. You know. Of course, if you get a bad piece of cheese, then you think about it.
Well, Bob, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
It's been most interesting, and you take a lot of this history and give it to Doc Hine there, and he'll record a lot of that, some of the old pictures. And
well, I can always.